The silver ship appeared in Earth's orbit on a Tuesday morning, catching every space agency by surprise. Captain Lee Miho was drinking coffee in the Seoul Space Command Center when the alarm started ringing. "Sir, we have an unknown vessel," his communications officer reported. "It's big." Miho set down his cup and looked at the main screen. The alien craft was 3 times larger than anything humans had ever built. Its surface gleamed like polished metal, covered in strange symbols that seemed to glow with their own light. "Any hostile actions?" Miho asked. "No, sir. It's just sitting there, waiting." On the alien ship, Ambassador Zethkar adjusted his ceremonial robes. His tall, thin frame moved gracefully through the ship's corridors as he prepared for humanity's first contact. His species, the Velthari, had done this hundreds of times before with primitive worlds. "Standard integration protocols are ready, Ambassador," his aide reported through their mental link. "The humans should accept council membership within 1 rotation cycle." Zethkar nodded. Every species they encountered followed the same pattern. First came fear, then wonder at advanced technology, then eager acceptance of Galactic Council membership. It was a process refined over thousands of years. The communication came at exactly noon, Earth time. Captain Miho had spent the morning gathering Earth's best linguists and diplomats. Dr. Park Hanna, a xenobiologist from Seoul University, sat beside him as they opened the first channel to another intelligent species. "Greetings, inhabitants of the 3rd planet," came the translated message. The alien's voice was smooth and formal. "I am Ambassador Zethkar of the Galactic Council. We come in peace." Miho looked at his team, then activated the transmitter. "This is Captain Lee Miho of the United Earth Space Command. We welcome you to our system, Ambassador." What happened next surprised everyone. Instead of the usual expressions of awe or fear, Captain Miho asked questions. Lots of questions. "How many species are in your council? What are their living conditions? Do any of them need assistance? Are there conflicts we should know about?" Ambassador Zethkar paused. In his 300 years of first contact missions, no primitive species had ever asked about helping others before securing their own position. "The council consists of 12 advanced civilizations," Zethkar replied carefully. "We maintain peace and order across this galactic sector. Your world shows promise for membership." Dr. Park Hanna leaned forward, studying the data her instruments were collecting. The alien ship's technology was incredibly advanced, but something troubled her. She whispered to Captain Miho, "Their energy readings suggest they're rationing power. Why would such an advanced species need to conserve energy?" Miho nodded and asked another unexpected question. "Ambassador, are all council species thriving? Our sensors indicate your ship is running on reduced power." The question hit Zethkar like a physical blow. No one had ever noticed such details during first contact. His ship was indeed conserving energy, fuel was becoming scarce throughout council space, though they hadn't admitted this to newer species. "All council members maintain appropriate resource levels," Zethkar answered, but his voice carried less certainty. On Earth, emergency meetings were happening in every major capital. President Kong Mairi spoke with world leaders while military advisors prepared for every possibility. But Captain Miho's reports painted a different picture than anyone expected. "They seem tired," Miho reported to the emergency council. "Advanced, yes, but there's something worn about them. Like they've been dealing with problems for a very long time." Dr. Park Hanna had been analyzing every piece of data they'd collected. Her findings were startling. "These aren't conquerors," she announced to the assembled leaders. "They're administrators. And I think they're overwhelmed." The breakthrough came when Ambassador Zethkar formally offered Earth membership in the Galactic Council. The standard protocol called for immediate acceptance, followed by technology transfers and integration procedures. Captain Miho's response shocked the alien diplomat to his core. "We're honored by your invitation, Ambassador Zethkar," Miho transmitted. "However, we'd prefer to start as observers. We've noticed from our conversations that some of your member species might be facing challenges. We'd like to help them first if that's possible." In the council chambers, 12 species sat in complete silence. The Yirith were indeed facing food shortages. The Namari homeworld was dealing with atmospheric pollution. The Keltos had been struggling with energy distribution for decades. But these were internal council matters, never discussed with outsiders. Ambassador Zethkar felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: confusion. "You wish to provide assistance to species you've never met, without gaining anything in return? That's what neighbors do," Captain Miho replied simply. Dr. Park Hanna added her voice to the transmission. We've solved similar problems on Earth. Maybe our solutions could help. We don't need anything in return except the chance to learn about the galaxy. The alien ship remained in orbit for 3 more days while Ambassador Zethkar consulted with the Council. The debates raged for hours. Some Council members called humanity's offer suspicious. Others wondered if it might be genuine. The Mirati representative, whose people had been quietly struggling with resource depletion, spoke the words that changed everything. What if we let them try? Ambassador Zethkar returned to Earth with a proposal no species had ever received. Instead of immediate membership, humanity would be granted observer status with the right to offer assistance to any council member who requested it. Captain Miho accepted immediately. We look forward to being good neighbors, Ambassador. As the alien ship prepared to leave, Dr. Park Hanna made a final observation that would prove prophetic. I think we just changed how first contact works. Forever. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. 3 weeks after first contact, every alarm in the Galactic Council headquarters was screaming. The massive space station orbited the neutral world of Centrum, and nothing like this had happened in over 200 years. Council Director Vexthara's 4 arms moved frantically across her control panels as she tried to process the emergency reports. The Mirati homeworld was dying. A cosmic storm, the kind that appeared once every 1,000 years, was racing toward their solar system. How long do we have? She asked her science team. 72 hours until the storm hits their outer planets, came the grim reply. 1 week before it reaches Mirati Prime. The radiation will kill everything. The Mirati had been council members for 6 centuries. Their world housed 12 billion gentle, insect-like beings who had never known war or violence. They were artists, philosophers, and healers. They were also completely unprepared for evacuation. Begin emergency protocols, Director Vexthara commanded. Form the evacuation committee immediately. On Earth, Commander Kim Do-hyun was eating lunch in the Seoul Space Command cafeteria when the priority alert flashed across his tablet. He read it twice, then dropped his chopsticks and ran to the command center. Get me every ship captain in the solar system, he shouted to his communications team. Now. Captain Lee Miho, still serving as Earth's primary alien liaison, received the call while inspecting a new transport ship in lunar orbit. Commander, what's the situation? 12 billion people are going to die unless someone evacuates them in the next 3 days, Do-hyun replied. The Council is forming committees. We're launching ships. Within 6 hours, something unprecedented was happening across Earth's solar system. Every vessel capable of carrying people was being modified for emergency evacuation. Cruise ships, cargo haulers, mining transports, research vessels, even luxury yachts were being retrofitted with life support systems. Engineer Choi Min-seo hadn't slept in 18 hours. Her team at the Luna shipyard was working miracles, installing Mirati-compatible atmosphere processors in ships never designed for alien passengers. These modifications aren't perfect, she reported to Commander Do-hyun. But they'll keep them alive long enough to get them somewhere safe. Good enough, Do-hyun replied. How many ships? 317 vessels, sir. Everything we could find. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council was still debating. The Mirati evacuation required careful planning, resource allocation studies, and environmental impact assessments. Standard protocol demanded at least 6 months of preparation. We cannot simply rush into this, argued Councillor Hexthon of the Axiom Collective. Proper evacuations require detailed logistics. Ambassador Zethkar watched the debates with growing frustration. His own people, the Velthari, had offered 2 evacuation ships. Other council members promised similar small contributions. At this rate, they might save a few thousand Mirati, not billions. The human fleet arrived in Mirati space while the council was still arguing about committee leadership. Captain Lee Juno commanded the evacuation fleet from the bridge of a converted passenger liner. His ship, the New Soul, had been a luxury cruise vessel just days ago. Now its ballrooms and restaurants were filled with emergency shelters. Mirati Control, this is Captain Lee of the Earth Evacuation Fleet, Juno transmitted. We're here to help. Please direct your people to emergency assembly points. The response from the planet below was chaos. The Mirati had never experienced anything like this. Their society was peaceful and organized, but they had no systems for mass evacuation. Earth Fleet, we don't know how to do this, came the terrified voice of Mirati controller Jinara. We've never had to leave our world before. Captain Yoon Min-jae, commanding a converted cargo hauler called the Busan Express, made the decision that saved millions of lives. Then we'll come down and show you. What followed was organized chaos on a scale the galaxy had never seen. Human ships dove into Mirati atmosphere without waiting for proper clearances or traffic control authorization. They landed in city centers, on rooftops, in parks, anywhere they could fit. The Mirati people, tall and graceful with chitinous shells that shimmered like oil on water, stared in amazement as human crews worked with desperate efficiency. Language barriers disappeared as humans used gestures, pictures, and pure determination to organize evacuation points. Engineer Choi Minseo landed her technical team on Mirati Prime to help coordinate the loading. "We need to move fast," she told her crew. "Load everyone you can, check life support, move to the next location." The human approach violated every council safety regulation. Ships were loaded beyond capacity. Safety checks were shortened to minutes instead of hours. Emergency shelters were crammed into spaces never meant for passengers. It worked. Captain Lee Miho coordinated the fleet from orbit, watching as ship after ship lifted off from the dying world. Each vessel carried thousands of Mirati refugees, heading for temporary shelter on council worlds that had agreed to help. "Status report," he requested. 4 million evacuated and counting, came the reply from Captain Juno. "We're using every available space. The dining rooms, cargo holds, even maintenance corridors." Ambassador Zethkar arrived with the official council evacuation fleet just as the cosmic storm reached Mirati's outer planets. The carefully planned council operation was designed to save 50,000 people over several months. The humans had evacuated 4 million in 72 hours. "How?" Zethkar asked Captain Miho as they watched the last human ships clear Mirati space. "We didn't wait for permission," Miho replied simply. "Sometimes you have to break rules to save lives." The cosmic storm hit Mirati Prime 6 hours later. The beautiful world that had been home to billions became a radiation-scorched wasteland. But the Mirati people lived, scattered across a dozen council worlds, alive because humans had chosen action over procedure. The galaxy would never be the same. The distress signal came from the edge of council space, where the aggressive Kethmoran Empire had been pushing into neutral territory for months. Admiral Song Hyunjae received the emergency transmission while reviewing fleet reports in his office aboard the Earth battleship Incheon. "Admiral, the Council is calling for military support," reported his aide, Lieutenant Han Soo-hyung. "The Kethmorans have taken 3 border worlds and are holding civilian populations." Song studied the tactical data on his screen. The Kethmoran Empire was known throughout the galaxy for their brutal efficiency. They conquered worlds not just for territory but for the people who lived there. Forced labor, restricted movement, controlled food distribution, it was slavery with a different name. "What's the Council's plan?" Song asked. "Limited engagement, sir. Push the Kethmorans back to the original borders, then negotiate a new treaty." Admiral Song frowned. "What about the civilians they're holding?" Lieutenant Han checked her reports. "The Council considers them acceptable losses during negotiations." "Unacceptable," Song said firmly. "Get me fleet command. We're not just pushing back invaders. We're liberating people." The joint fleet assembled at the neutral staging point of Kepler 442. Council Fleet Commander Nexthora commanded the largest force the galaxy had seen in decades, 47 ships from 8 different species. Humanity contributed a single battle group, 12 ships that looked small compared to the massive Council vessels. "The objective is simple," Commander Nexthora explained during the strategy briefing. "We establish superior firepower, force Kethmoran withdrawal, then begin border negotiations." Admiral Song raised his hand. "What about civilian evacuation during the fighting?" "Civilian casualties are regrettable but expected," Nexthora replied coldly. "Our priority is territorial restoration." Captain Yoon Min-jae, commanding the human destroyer Gwangju, whispered to his tactical officer. "Did he just say civilian casualties are acceptable?" "I think he did, sir." The battle began exactly as the Council planned. Their massive ships engaged the Kethmoran fleet in traditional formation, exchanging long-range fire in the empty space between planets. It was warfare as practiced for thousands of years, clean, organized, and completely focused on military targets. Then the human ships broke formation. "Where are they going?" Commander Nexthora demanded as he watched the human vessels veer away from the main battle. Admiral Song's voice crackled over the communications channel. "To finish the job. All human ships, proceed to planetary assault positions." Admiral Song returned to formation immediately, Nexthora ordered. "You're compromising our battle plan." "With respect, Commander, your battle plan doesn't save anybody," Song replied. "We didn't come here to win a space battle. We came here to free people. The human ships dove toward the occupied planets while the Kethmoran fleet was distracted by the Council forces. Captain Lee Juno commanded the assault group, his converted transport ship New Soul leading the way. Broadcasting on all Kethmoran civilian frequencies, reported his communications officer. Message is simple: Liberation forces incoming. Move to safe areas marked with these coordinates. What the humans found on the surface shocked even their worst expectations. The Kethmorans had turned entire cities into work camps. Civilian populations were trapped behind energy barriers, forced to mine resources and build weapons for their captors. This isn't military occupation, reported Captain Yoon Min-jae from the ground. This is systematic enslavement. The human approach to liberation was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of massive bombardments or lengthy sieges, they used precision strikes and rapid deployment. Small teams would disable the energy barriers while evacuation ships landed directly in population centers. Engineer Choi Min-seo coordinated the technical teams that shut down the prison systems. These barrier generators are sophisticated, she reported. But they're designed to keep people in, not to keep us out. The Kethmoran military found themselves fighting an enemy they couldn't understand. The humans ignored strategic military targets and focused entirely on civilian areas. They fought with terrifying intensity when protecting non-combatants, but offered immediate medical aid to Kethmoran soldiers who surrendered. They're not following any known tactical doctrine, reported Kethmoran General Morthak to his commanders. They appear to value enemy civilian lives more than military victory. Captain Park Sung-min led a rescue operation in the largest prison city on Kepler 442c. His team found 30,000 civilians from 6 different species, all held in conditions that violated every galactic treaty on prisoner treatment. Medical teams Priority 1, Sung-min commanded. Food distribution Priority 2. Transportation to evacuation sites Priority 3. The liberation of each prison camp followed the same pattern. Human forces would arrive with overwhelming local superiority, disable the prison systems, evacuate the civilians, and then offer surrender terms to the Kethmoran guards. We don't want to hurt you, Captain Yoon Min-jae told a group of surrendering Kethmoran soldiers. We just want to free the people you were holding. The confusion spread through Kethmoran ranks. Their military doctrine was based on the assumption that all enemies sought territorial conquest. An enemy that fought only to free prisoners was completely outside their experience. Commander Nexthora watched from orbit as the humans completed their operations. The space battle was still ongoing, but the planetary campaign was essentially over. 3 worlds had been liberated in 18 hours. Admiral Song, what is your status? Nexthora asked. Mission accomplished, Commander. All civilian populations have been evacuated to safety. We're establishing temporary refugee centers and medical facilities. But the Kethmoran military forces are still intact, Nexthora protested. They've requested negotiations, Song replied. Apparently they're more interested in talking when their prison camps are empty. The aftermath was unlike any military campaign in galactic history. Instead of territorial conquest, the humans had created voluntary surrender. Kethmoran civilians, freed from their own government's oppression, requested protection from Earth forces rather than return to imperial control. What had begun as a border dispute had become something unprecedented. Liberation through compassion rather than conquest through force. The galaxy was learning that humans had a very different definition of victory. The emergency session had been running for 8 hours. The Great Council Chamber, a massive crystalline dome that had witnessed thousands of years of galactic diplomacy, had never seen such heated debate. Ancient species that had maintained perfect order for millennia were shouting at each other. Supreme Hegemon Axthal of the Axios hegemony dominated the central platform with his massive form. His species had been the military backbone of the Council for 2,000 years, and his patience with humanity had reached its limit. The humans are a disease, Axthal declared, his voice echoing through the chamber. They ignore our laws, break our protocols, and spread chaos wherever they go. They must be expelled before they destroy everything we have built. Murmurs of agreement rippled through half the assembly. The Velthari delegation nodded their elongated heads. The Axiom Collective's representatives activated their approval signals. Even some of the smaller species seemed convinced that humanity posed a threat to galactic stability. But not everyone agreed. Mirati Ambassador Lysera rose slowly from her delegation's section. Her silver carapace still bore scars from her homeworld's evacuation, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of 4 billion saved lives. The humans broke your protocols to save my people, she said quietly, but her words carried clearly through the chamber. Your procedures would have left us all dead while committees debated resource allocation. Perhaps what you call chaos is what this council desperately needs. The chamber erupted. Species that had maintained polite disagreement for centuries were now engaged in open argument. The Keltos delegation supported humanity, remembering how human engineers had solved their energy crisis in weeks rather than decades. The Yirith spoke of food distribution systems that had ended their famine. Ambassador Zethkar watched the proceedings with growing dismay. His own species was divided. Some Velthari appreciated humanity's efficiency, while others feared the precedent it set for future council membership. On Earth, President Kong Myri convened her emergency cabinet in the Blue House's crisis room. Every screen displayed real-time feeds from the council debate, and the translations were not encouraging. Half the council wants us gone, reported Foreign Minister Park Won-ho. The other half is willing to fight to keep us as members, but they want us to change everything about how we operate. Defense Minister Kim Tae-hoon pulled up military assessments. If they expel us, we lose access to galactic technology, trade routes, and early warning systems. We'd be isolated and vulnerable. Dr. Nam Haiju, Earth's chief xenopsychologist, had been studying council dynamics for months. Her analysis was sobering. They've achieved peace through rigidity, she explained. Every problem has a procedure, every crisis has a committee. They've forgotten how to adapt to unexpected situations. President Kong studied the data streams. The choice before humanity was stark and simple. Submit to council authority and abandon the principles that made them effective, or maintain independence and risk everything. There's a third option, said Admiral Song Hyun-jae, joining the meeting via secure link from his flagship. We help them fix their broken system. The president looked up sharply. Explain. They're not really angry at us for breaking rules, Song continued. They're angry because we're showing them that their rules don't work. The Axios hegemony isn't upset about our rescue operations. They're upset because we make them look incompetent. Back in the council chamber, the debate had reached a critical point. Supreme Hegemon Axthal was demanding an immediate vote on human expulsion. His massive war fleet was already moving toward council space, a not-so-subtle reminder of Axios' military power. The humans will submit to proper authority or face expulsion, Axthal declared. There can be no compromise with chaos. That's when Ambassador Lysera made her move. The Mirati had been peaceful for centuries, never involving themselves in council power struggles. But now she stood and spoke with authority that surprised everyone. The Mirati Collective formally requests human mediation services, she announced. We invoke Article 12 of the Council Charter, the right to independent arbitration for internal disputes. The chamber fell silent. Article 12 hadn't been used in over 500 years. It allowed council members to seek outside mediation when internal procedures failed. You cannot invoke outside arbitration with a non-member species, Axthal protested. The humans are observer members, Lysera replied calmly. Article 12 specifically allows observers to serve as neutral mediators. In Seoul, President Kong received the emergency transmission from Captain Lee Miho, who was monitoring the council session from Earth's embassy ship. Madam President, the Mirati just offered us a way out, Miho reported. They want us to mediate council disputes instead of joining the council. The president understood immediately. Brilliant. We help them solve their problems without being bound by their rules. Her response reached the council chamber within minutes. President Kang's image appeared on the main display, addressing the assembled aliens with quiet confidence. The Republic of Earth formally withdraws its application for council membership, she announced, causing gasps throughout the chamber. Instead, we offer our services as independent mediators and emergency responders. We will help any council member who requests assistance, without seeking political control or territorial gain. The proposal was unprecedented. No species had ever voluntarily withdrawn from council membership to serve as neutral arbitrators. But as President Kong continued speaking, the logic became clear. Your council has maintained peace for thousands of years through structure and procedure, she said. But some problems require flexibility and rapid response. We offer to be that flexibility when you need it, while respecting your authority to govern. Supreme Hegemon Axthal found himself in an impossible position. He could hardly object to humanity helping other species, especially when they were explicitly rejecting council membership and political power. Mirati Ambassador Lysera sealed the deal with words that would reshape galactic governance, We formally request Earth's assistance in developing rapid response protocols for future emergency situations. Within hours, 6 more species had made similar requests. The Council faced a choice: accept humanity's unique role or lose the services that had already proven invaluable. The vote wasn't even close. 6 months after the Great Council crisis, the galaxy looked completely different. Ambassador Cho Sungmin stood on the observation deck of the new Mediation Center, watching ships from dozens of species dock at the orbital facility above Kepler 438b's neutral moon. The center itself was a marvel of adaptive design. Unlike the rigid architecture of traditional council buildings, every wall could move, every room could change size, and the environmental systems adjusted automatically for any species that walked through the doors. It was humanity's gift to galactic diplomacy, flexibility built into every molecule. "The morning briefing is ready, Ambassador," reported Mediator Zhang Yunji as she approached with a data pad full of current cases. Her team had resolved 17 interspecies disputes in the past month alone. "What's on the agenda today?" Cho asked, accepting the pad. "The Veltheri and Zephyrin trade dispute is finally settled," Zhang reported with satisfaction. "Both sides agreed to the resource-sharing protocols we suggested. They're calling it the Soul Accord." Cho smiled. The dispute had been raging for 3 years before humans got involved. Traditional council mediation involved endless committees and formal procedures that satisfied no one. The human approach was simpler: get both sides in a room, find out what they actually needed instead of what they claimed to want, then create solutions that helped everyone. Across the galaxy, Captain Lee Miho was coordinating humanity's latest emergency response from the Independent Species Network headquarters. The ISN had grown far beyond anyone's expectations, with 17 species now participating in the alternative governance model. "Status report on the Pyraxis 7 evacuation?" Miho asked his operations team. "Volcanic eruption is accelerating ahead of schedule," reported his aide, a young Mirati named Kosera who had joined the Human Emergency Services after her people's rescue. "3 different species have requested our assistance." "Council response time?" Miho asked, though he already knew the answer. "Standard protocols call for geological impact studies, resource allocation hearings and safety committee formation," Kosera replied. "Estimated response time, 4 months minimum." "Human response time?" "Rescue ships launch in 6 hours. We figure out the paperwork while people are getting to safety." It was the fundamental difference between the two approaches. The Galactic Council governed through careful procedure and endless consultation. The ISN operated on the principle that some problems couldn't wait for committees. The rescue ships were already launching when Admiral Song Hyun-jae received an unexpected communication. Supreme Hegemon Axthul, once humanity's greatest opponent in the Council, was requesting a private meeting. They met aboard Song's flagship, the Incheon, in the Admiral's ready room. Axthul's massive form barely fit in the chair designed for human proportions, but he seemed genuinely interested in the conversation. "Your rapid response protocols?" Axthul began without preamble. "We have been studying them." Song raised an eyebrow. "And? They work," the hegemon admitted grudgingly. "Our military exercises now incorporate what you call controlled improvisation. Response times have improved by 60%. It was happening throughout Council space. Species that had operated the same way for thousands of years were quietly adopting human-inspired innovations. Emergency response teams that acted first and filed reports later. Diplomatic solutions that focused on needs rather than positions. Trade agreements that adapted to changing circumstances instead of locked rigid terms. Dr. Park Hannah was documenting the changes in her research facility on Luna. Her latest report to Earth's government painted a picture of gradual but fundamental transformation across the galaxy. "The most significant change isn't in procedures," she wrote. "It's in mindset. Species that govern through consensus are learning the value of constructive disagreement. The Council that once feared human unpredictability now consults Earth before making major decisions." The transformation was most visible in crisis response. When the industrial world of Manufactus Prime suffered a massive chemical leak, both the Council and ISN responded simultaneously. The Council's careful, methodical approach secured the leak and prevented environmental damage. The ISN's rapid response evacuated 3 million workers and provided immediate medical treatment. Working together, they achieved something neither could have managed alone. President Kang Myri reviewed the quarterly reports from her office in Seoul. The numbers told an extraordinary story. Trade between Earth and galactic civilizations had increased by 400%. More importantly, the number of species requesting human mediation services grew every month. The Axios hegemony wants us to mediate their border dispute with the Keltos Federation, reported Foreign Minister Park Won-ho. Apparently, our unorthodox methods are now considered an advantage. What about the traditional council? President Kong asked. They're reforming faster than anyone expected. The emergency response protocols we suggested are being implemented across all member species. They've even created a new position, Director of Adaptive Solutions. The real success story was visible in the daily operations throughout the galaxy. The Yirith, once facing chronic food shortages, now had surplus production thanks to human agricultural techniques. The Mirati had established the galaxy's first mobile emergency response fleet, modeled on human rescue operations. Even the rigid Velthari had created rapid decision-making protocols for crisis situations. Captain Yoon Min-jae commanded one of the new joint species emergency teams, with crew members from 7 different civilizations. They had just completed a successful rescue mission on the storm-swept world of Tempest 4, saving thousands of lives through coordinated action between Council resources and ISN flexibility. The difference isn't the technology, Yoon explained to a group of young officers from various species. It's the willingness to adapt. Rules exist to help people, not the other way around. As the first year of the new paradigm drew to a close, Ambassador Cho Sungmin prepared his annual report. The conclusion was simple but profound. We didn't change the galaxy by abandoning our principles. We changed it by refusing to abandon them. The stars no longer seemed like distant points of light. They had become neighborhoods where cooperation mattered more than conformity, where helping others was more important than following procedures, and where the best allies were those who stayed true to themselves while working together. The galaxy had learned what Earth always knew. Sometimes the best way to maintain order was to embrace a little controlled chaos.